Good evening and welcome to the March 6th, 2018 Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen's meeting. May we have a roll call, please?
Present is Selectman Tropiano, Selectman Scasiotti, Selectman Slavin, Selectman Titlebaum, Town Council Richard Bowen.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. We called upon Mrs. Bruce yet?
No. We'll do it again.
Yeah. It's an election year. Show your patriotism. All righty, thank you. Announcements, please.
Okay, I'm going to use the time a little bit here, a few minutes anyway. All right, so I want to thank the electric people. I don't know, I hear everybody growls and they get upset when the power goes out and something, but this was pretty catastrophic and there was trees down everywhere. And for the most part, a town that was basically without power from one end to the other, they got it up and running in 2 days. Now, there were a few stragglers that they got in on the third day, but by and large, they did a whale of a job. And, I can remember when Bob was around, we were out for a week and a half. So it's a much better system that they use now, whatever it is. They brought in all those guys, and you know what? They deserve a hand. They work under the worst adverse conditions you can imagine. The wind was still blowing, and they were out there half the time putting up stuff. And then they have people like on Great Neck Road that come down and hit telephone poles and knock them off, and so they got to fix those while they're at it, as well. So I got to give them kudos and thank them for all the work they did to get us up and running. You just can't say enough about it. All right, next. Last week we talked about the possibility of putting an article on the warrant for carriages, right? And, I'm kind of alarmed because I see the paper, they put it in the paper, and underneath there's a list of people who say, what, the selectmen got nothing else to do but worry about carriages? I want to defend this board. We work pretty hard. Every single person up here works pretty hard to make sure that we take care of all the stuff. Carriage is just one of the smallest of the things we do, but it's still one of the things that needs to be done. It is causing a lot of problem for our Board of Health, for our building department, and so on. And if we can eliminate it, we're going to eliminate it so that we can get them doing what they need to do and not be chasing silliness. So it just upsets me when I see people do that. And it's like, you have nothing else to do. What I say to you, do you have nothing else to do but to say bad things when you're writing on the thing? That's more important. You got nothing else to do as far as I'm concerned. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. All right, so the opioid thing. Massachusetts dropped last year by 0.5% in deaths, which, you think that's not much, but you know what? That's showing some downward trend instead of upward trend. By the way, most of the rest of the country, with one exception, are going the other way. They're still climbing. So, obviously, all the talk that we do here and the people talking in these other places and stuff must be working. So I say get out there and keep charging and keep talking about it and keep trying to help whoever you can help and get them to those events and so on and so forth and see if we can make the numbers go down even a little more if we can. That's the end of that. Also, I need April 27th, I need to have on the agenda, the school building committee wants to come in and make a presentation.
April 27th.
I'm sorry,
Or
March
March
27th.
okay.
Sorry. Did I say April?
You said April.
I meant
I
March.
say April is going to be somebody else doing the agenda.
No,
so-
March 27th.
Okay.
Okay? And we should talk about, I was at the meeting, I'll talk about the meeting and stuff and the sewer stuff later. But thank you for your indulgence.
Okay.
So indulged.
Anything, Selectman Scasiotti?
No, all said, thank you.
One quick thing, Patrick, the drug workshop in Brockton on Friday the 9th, it starts at 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. is at the Fuller Craft Museum. So if you want to go, let me know, and
I'm going to go.
we can probably go together if you like.
Do you have an address and everything?
It says Fuller Craft Museum, you just have to
What
look it
time
up.
does it start?
It starts at 8 o'clock. There's probably a little...
8 in the morning,
They
wow.
probably give you coffee, and then,
Yeah, they give you something usually.
but they don't give you any opioids to get you going.
They'll throw something at you.
Yeah, but not the good stuff. All right. little humor for the day, and that's it. First off, we have a bunch of boards and committee openings for those people who want to help the town and make comments and everything else. You've got an opportunity to step up and do some stuff. Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Bike Path Committee, Beach and Tourism Committee, Board of Health, it's an associate position. Capital Planning Committee, that's a citizen at large. Community Events Committee, Historic District Committee, Historical Commission, Library Board of Trustees. We have Marine Resources Commission, but I'm not sure what's happening there with that one, actually. Minor Forest Committee, Recycling Committee, Wareham Cultural Council, Wareham Veterans Council, and the Wareham Board of Appeals and Associate. Again, you can pick up the applications at the Selectmen's office, and we really need people to step up. This town really runs on volunteers, and, you know, sometimes they don't feel they're appreciated, but they really are. It's the only way the town actually functions at the end of the day.
Just to follow up on what I sent out last week, where we have an election coming up where we're going to have at least one new member, and I hate to say it, but possibly two.
Possibly two.
I've decided to hold off on any appointments because it's so close to the election that we should have a fresh board make those appointments. Some of these appointments were for 3 years, so I think it's only fair to allow the new member, parenthesis S, possibility, to make that call in April. It's just a few more weeks away, so.
Thank you.
What is it, April 3rd?
Okay, VFW, as everybody knows, their sign is still down, hasn't been replaced yet, so I'll try to read their events as we go along. Thursday, March 8th, which I believe is this week, meet and greet the Wareham Veterans Council. They'll have an event there at the ballpark, at the VFW, 6 p.m., sorry. Now, we have, I'll go through these. Chicken Bacon Surprise Auction, Saturday, March 24th, 6 p.m., Redmond Hall, Main Street. Tickets are $20. Include salad, half-baked chicken. Not sure what a half-baked chicken is. Potato, vegetable rolls, butter, coffee, and dessert. Bring a wrapped item for the surprise auction and maybe something new or repurposed. Contact Howie Smith at 508-295-4679 or Missy Bourne at 508-295-6534. It's sponsored by the Wareham Firemen's Association to benefit their scholarship fund. If you're not able to record that down, that will be in the Selectmen's office if you want to call them for information. Next, we have a raffle drawing. 3 lucky winners and their guests will enjoy a 3-course colonial dinner with General George Washington. Saturday, April 28th, 6 p.m. at the Marion Music Hall, featuring Mr. Samuel Davis as George Washington. Only 100 raffle tickets will be sold. The tickets will be $10 each. The drawing will be Friday evening, April 27th at the Wareham High School public presentation or a visit from George Washington. Again, contact Howie Smith at 508-295-4679. This is presented by the Wareham Minutemen and Militia Companies, Inc. and the Marion Recreation Department. And continuing on the same piece, on the 27th of April, a visit from General Washington. And this will be at the Wareham High School Auditorium, featuring, again, Mr. Samuel Davis as George Washington. Tales of the Crossing of the Delaware. It won't be the same thing as the boat being pulled across the road that we see in TV commercials lately.
It'll be pulled across the stage?
It'll probably be pulled across the stage or something like that, but it's not going to be the TV commercial. Stories of life in Revolutionary America. He does an excellent job. It's really worth coming and seeing. The guy does a fantastic job. He makes you feel like you're really there. It's free and open to the public, plus an opportunity again to win the 3-course colonial dinner with George Washington. Contact Howie Smith at 508-295-4679. Again, presented by the Wareham Militiamen, Minutemen Militia Companies, Inc., and Marion Recreation. I'd like to read very quickly, and you have to put up with me, I have a respiratory thing that's slowly killing me. This is from Secretary Pollock that I received, which is the Director of Transportation for the state of Massachusetts. Time to build consensus on South Coast Rail. We know that we've been trying to get our portion, which is, the old colony route, to be included in the South Coast Rail project, which has been announced by the governor, something they want to do for 2022. It's important that our piece gets somehow at least put onto the side of the article or the discussion, so it's there when the time comes. So I'm just going to read this as best I can, and hopefully you'll understand it. It's time to build consensus on South Coast Rail, Massachusetts. Transportation Secretary Stephanie Pollock told a large sympathetic audience Wednesday at a meeting hosted by the business and community leaders. There's actually a meeting tonight to do the same thing again, but I would normally be there, but because of the Selectmen's meeting, I can't be there. Agreement on station locations, use of the Middleborough route, and the use of non-electrified trains would help the project meet its promised Phase 1 delivery date of 2022. We are really at a critical moment, Pollock said. She said the plan needs to get Pacific fast because you can't secure permits for a conceptual idea. We collectively need to make some decisions, she said, and if we can reach consensus in the weeks and months ahead on what it is, then the Baker-Polito administration is completely committed to funding, building, and putting into service this project, but we need complete consensus. Pollock spoke at the UMass Law School at the invitation of the business-led Rail to Boston Coalition and South Coast Development Partnerships. The Rail to Boston Coalition has been endorsed the Middleborough route as the way to bring trains to the region sooner. Also, the SERPED group, which basically covers the 27 communities in Southeast Mass, is there tonight speaking as well, and finally in support of the Phase 1 rather than waiting for what we call the Phase 2, which may never happen. We step forward in unity because we can see the benefits that are coming, Coalition Paul Chassis said in his opening remarks. We believe that restoring rail service is critical to linking jobs, housing, tourism, specialty health, college campuses, and so much more. And that doesn't include tens of millions of dollars of economic growth expected in and around the train stations, according to Chase. About a year ago, the Massachusetts Department of Transportation announced it was considering doing a South Coast rail in phases, with service via Middleborough as Phase 1. The previously selected Stoughton route would offer shorter rides, but building would cost more and require traveling the Hockomock Swamp. The plan for Stoughton also includes electric trains, which Middleborough route does not. The state is still pursuing the Stoughton route as Phase 2, and Pollock said Massachusetts needs to keep the Stoughton route on the table to avoid starting all over with federal permitting. If they had to start over with federal permitting, it would add 10 years to the project. When consultants determined that the Stoughton route would take longer to build and cost more than the anticipated $3.2 billion, the Baker administration could have taken the easy way out and continued permitting a project that would take 12 to 13 years, she said. But Governor Charlie Baker wants it done faster, so they started looking at options and found other states had broken their project into phases. New stations in Phase 1 are projected to attract 41% of the ridership of Phase 2 for one-third the cost. The ride would be about 91 minutes from New Bedford to Boston. Phase 1 is estimated at $935 million. Spokesman for New Bedford Mayor John Mitchell, who obviously has very much benefit for this, said earlier Wednesday that Mitchell had secured an agreement from the state to design a multimodal service station for trains, buses, and more at the Whale's Tooth parking area in New Bedford's waterfront, instead of a platform-style station that was included in the recent environmental report on Phase 1. Asked about that commitment, Pollock said it will come in the form of a grant for feasibility and design analysis and not part of the main project. I've heard the mayor's request, she said, and the planning grant will sit in coordination with the South Coast Rail, but on the side. And that's what we're trying to do, is get our particular piece put on the side so it's there when the time comes. At the meeting, Middleborough Board of Selectmen Alan Frawley said although he believes Pollock when she says she wants to build consensus, no one representing the town was invited to attend. Unfortunately, sometimes they miss a few of the things. So we're trying. It's important long-term for the town financially to be able to get rail, so we're going to keep after it. The opening is here. You know, we got till 2022, so we'll just keep after it. The other thing Patrick made mention of, I'd like to thank the people of Wareham. When times get really bad, like with the storm we had, the true character of our town really comes through, and you see what really happens. People stepped up. I have a friend that had, everybody probably saw on Main Street, where about a 6,000 square foot piece of his roof came flying off his business and ended up on almost the front of the street on Main Street, which people don't realize it came from way in the back of the building, flew over the other half of the 6,000 square foot building, over an alleyway, over the top of another building, and landed in the front part of the building. I've only seen something like that probably with a tornado. It's amazing. That thing weighed, I don't know, 5 or 6 tons of wood. And at 11 o'clock that night, there were people from everywhere helping out and taking care of stuff. There were custom cars in the building. Everybody, worked really hard at it. And when you look at stuff, our firemen, our policemen, our ambulance people, Gary Buckminster and his natural resource group, they were out 24/7 taking care of the stuff. And those winds in that area, they were exceeding 100 miles an hour. And people were out there working in that kind of weather, and it's dangerous and stuff, and they just didn't care. They did what they had to do, and we really need to thank them. And I've made a comment before, we always should stop and when we see someone, just say thank you. It's as simple as that. For myself and Sandy, we had the unfortunate experience of having a tree fall down on the house and a second tree bouncing off the house. And I was able to, my wife doesn't like cutting trees down, so just for information. So I had the rare opportunity in life, and I could say, yes, dear, you were wrong. Because that tree that I talked about did hit the house. But I'd like to thank, again, we had a problem. Joe Leggett, who's a friend, came over and helped us immediately. Pontiac Tree was there, cut the tree off the house before any more damage came. Cape Cod Roofing and Siding, I'm sorry if I'm promoting people's businesses, but they came and helped out, and this is how it works. So again, when people step up, you have to appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I've actually got a list here. First off, I just want to remind everybody that March 12th, next Monday, is the special town meeting to deal with the issue of establishing the maximum 3% tax that we can assess on marijuana sales within the town of Wareham, and also to limit the amount of recreational facilities and where they would go, recreational marijuana as they call it, retail marijuana. I've been hearing from more than a few people that we should just vote this down and just not let any of this stuff in here. Folks, the surest way to guarantee that the town gets overrun with marijuana retail establishments is to vote down this article, because then there are no limits. People have said, well, you should go back and have an election, you should have to do this, you should do that. None of that is on the table. The town voted at a higher percentage even than the state did to legalize marijuana. The people have spoken. It's going to be legal. The legislature has fiddled and diddled with it for a couple of years now with the result of the statewide referendum. They've come up with a series of things that they're putting in place, but unless we vote before April 1st to limit the number of these places and where they can be, it's going to be the Wild West here. I frankly can't emphasize that enough. A no vote next Monday is a yes vote to just being overrun with this. So, please don't listen to people who say that this is some kind of an endorsement or anything like that. It's not an endorsement, it's dealing with reality. And I hope you all come out to town meeting and overwhelmingly support this. The second thing is, Alan touched on some of the things I was going to talk about, with regard to some of the work, especially that the town departments did and town employees. I want to acknowledge particularly the Wareham Municipal Maintenance Department. They were out till after midnight the night of the storm. They were out there in these winds as the trees were crashing down, trying to remove other trees from the roads. They were out there early the next morning. By 8 o'clock the next morning, they were back out removing trees. I actually went around early in the morning by myself before I went to Middleborough for coffee, because I had to have that. And then I went out again later in the day. And by the way, if you want to know what fear is, drive under a Widowmaker in a convertible. By that I mean the trees that overhang, that are leaning up against something that could fall at any time. That's when you really feel fear. Later in the day, I went around with the town administrator and the director of municipal maintenance, and we looked at some of the stuff. We brought, town administrator bought coffee and donuts, and we were handing them out to the municipal maintenance people. But just the amount of work that they did to get the roads essentially cleared up by 10 o'clock in the morning. You had all the main roads open, and at that point they probably had half the side streets open, which then in turn allowed the utility crews to get down there and start repairing the wires. They did an unbelievable job. The Wareham Fire Department was out there cutting as well, helping people out, pumping basements as was needed. The Onset Fire Department was doing the same thing, and of course we should also take note and give our thoughts and best wishes to the Onset firefighter who was hurt while he was directing traffic by a hit-and-run driver. I'd also like to congratulate the Wareham Police Department for apprehending the individual responsible, and so that he will face justice for fleeing the scene. The Board of Health was instrumental in helping out with this. I'd like to thank Amy Vigant, Dr. Amy Vigant of the Board of Health, Patrick McDonald, who works with the Health Department, Marietta Maricini, who works in the Harbor Master's office, and also Suzanne Burke, who works with the Health Department. They staff the warming center in the downstairs here in the multi-service center. There weren't a ton of people who showed up, to be honest, but the people who did show up were grateful to be warm, and we're grateful that these people went the extra mile to keep those people safe. We'd be remiss not to thank the Wareham Police for their efforts in directing traffic and keeping things going. The harbor master, I know he was out that night with municipal maintenance helping to remove logs from roads and everything else. And I'd also like to thank the YMCA, which once they got operational yesterday, offered, beginning at noon, free showers, a place to warm up, and a place for people to charge their phones. You know, we found out how valuable and meaningful they are in our community this summer when we had the school threat incident, and they accepted every kid who was in summer school over there and took care of them, sheltered them, kept them entertained so that the parents could go there and pick them up from a safe environment. And once again, when we needed them the most, they stepped up. So I'm very appreciative of Debbie Fringelli and everybody involved with the YMCA. The only discouraging thing I would say is, you know, aside from the firefighter being hit, there were way too many people out on Friday night doing what must have been unessential business. You know, if you were a public safety person, if you were a nurse, if you're a doctor, a medical professional, if you worked for the power company, or if you worked in a pharmacy, or you worked in a job where you had to be there, you had a good reason for being out. If you were going out to get pizza because the power failed and you hadn't planned ahead of time, all you were doing was endangering the people who were out there and endangering yourself, because those conditions were crazy. Around 8 o'clock, it was frankly so windy, my house started shaking so much, even the new portion that has steel beams in it, because it was built under the 8th edition of the Mass Building Code, and anything near the coast over a certain size has to have steel in it, that my German Shepherd, who was very protective, hopped up in my lap, laid across it, and started growling at the wind, because she didn't know what the hell it was, but by God, she was going to kick its ass if it came in the house. So that's the kind of weather we were going through. You don't need to be out in that. It's you're just going to get in the way. You're just going to get yourself hurt. You know, we did get the firefighter hurt on Cranberry Highway. So the next time we get one of these things, please plan ahead, get your food, get stuff you can eat, and please stay home if you don't have to. If you're not an important person who has to get to work, and by important, I mean somebody in a public safety or a similar type job. So that's all I have to say.
I just want to reaffirm that the YMCA, we called them, and before I even finished speaking, they had already put something in place, and you know, they've said they want to become much more involved in the town. We really need to thank them very much for what they did.
No, and thank you for coming up with the idea to call them. That was a good creative stroke on your part. All right. Did you have something else?
Actually, you guys covered it. I mean, I was, you know, I thank the electric people, and I had it here to thank our people.
Yep.
Secondly, I mean, our people did a whale of a job out there, like they always do. They're always out there when it's bad conditions and so on and so forth, and they deserve kudos almost all the time. So it's what they do as a regular course, and we kind of take them for granted because they do it regularly. You know, they're out there doing that kind of stuff. And also the police department for catching the gentleman, but even more so, the tip line. The little text line where people text in that gave them the tips that helped them solve the case. I mean, that's great, people. I mean, that's stepping up to the plate right there and you know, doing whatever. And the other thing was, you know, we had a tree down across my road, and we went out and cut it up. And some of the neighbors came out and everything to get it off the road. And, you know, it was kind of nice. You know, you don't talk to the neighbors too much anymore. Everybody kind of stays inside. And it was really kind of neat being able to talk to the neighbors for a change, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, instead of just growling when you go by, you know? So it was kind of cool. But anyway,
Yep.
That's what I wanted to say. So.
Yeah, there was one thing I did forget to mention was on Saturday at one point we went down to where the boat warehouse near Captain Al's was swaying in the breeze.
Did you get a statement to read from the chief? He sent you a statement to read, the chief of police.
I'll check my town email.
Yeah, check it.
But
'cause
but
he
in
wants
the
you to
but
read it into the.
Yeah, but in the meantime, I did run into Deputy Chief of the Onset Fire Department, Oswald, and he said, be sure to thank your EMS people up and down, because he believes that they absolutely saved the life of the firefighter who was hit in that hit and run. He said that you know, he was knocked 40 feet in the air. and really got whacked. He had serious injuries to his leg, to his face. He had internal bleeding in several spots. And the rapid response and the quick transport to Rhode Island Hospital by EMS probably saved his life. So I actually don't have anything from Chief Walsh other than his press release. Oh, wait a minute, here we go.
He sent you something.
Yeah,
I'd
actually
like you to
forwarded it through
read if
Derek.
you can.
Okay, I'll read this, and this comes from Kevin Walsh, Chief of Police, Wareham Police Department. From the beginning of the storm on Friday afternoon to midnight Sunday, Wareham Police Department personnel responded to over 345 incidents, not to mention the countless calls received and handled by communications officers. Calls for service range from very minor incidents to incidents involving life-saving efforts, along with the usual added, quote, usual, unquote, calls, including domestics, disturbances, and general peacekeeping incidents. As usual, WPD was up to the task and provided public safety to the best of our abilities. WPD would like to thank the various town officials and agency representatives who provided valuable guidance and assistance during the storm, including emergency response personnel of the Wareham Fire Department and Wareham EMS Department, the Department of Natural Resources led by Gary Buckminster, and the Municipal Maintenance Department led by David Menard, all of whom were very much appreciated. In closing, I would like to thank the citizens of Wareham for their cooperation, understanding, and patience during the storm. So, as you can see, we're kind of all on the same page here as regards appreciating everybody else for their response. So, I think we're done with announcements. Citizens' comments. Anybody who'd like to speak to the board tonight? After a brief absence, Mrs. Slavin returns.
Yeah, she's been gone for weeks. What's the deal with that?
Yes, there.
Sandy Slavin, three things tonight. A couple weeks ago, I picked up trash at Pizzoli Square, and within 10 feet of the trash barrels, I picked up 24 nips, which leads me to believe you can give them trash barrels. It doesn't mean they're going to use them. The next one was I was picking up trash at the corner of Stillman and Indian Nick, and I found a bag from store $5 or less, or one of those. Picked it up, and inside was $11. I feel rich.
Oh.
So that was a very nice find,
I didn't
and I'm
get
sorry
anything.
whoever threw it away, your eyeliner got thrown away too. I didn't save it. Going through
Not your color?
not my color. Going through the bylaws, I was looking for something, and I came across this, our general bylaws, Division 2, Article 1, Section 16A. And I just going to read, knowing that we have the bylaws coming up for the marijuana, and just a side note, I was at one of the planning board meetings. If we don't put something in our bylaws, we could very well see a recreation on Main Street where they have a very nice, safe vault where the bank is going out. They, therefore, could very well go there if we don't do something about our bylaws. Okay, 16A. No person shall smoke, ingest, or otherwise use or consume marijuana while in or upon any street, sidewalk, public way, footway, passageway, stairs, bridge, park, playground, beach, recreation area, boat landing, public building, schoolhouse, school grounds, cemetery, parking lot, or any area owned by or under the control of the town, or in or upon any bus or other passengers conveyance operated by a common carrier, or in any place accessible to the public. This bylaw may be enforced through the lawful means in law, or including but not limited to enforcement by criminal indictment or complaint, etc., and a bunch of general laws, etc. The fine for violation of this bylaw should be $300 for each offense. I'd like to see our police pick up a lot of $300 fines the minute they leave their recreation, light up, and therefore is another $300 in our general budget.
Have you walked around Cambridge recently?
No.
You don't even need to buy your own.
No, it's been enough. I go to enough concerts.
Well,
that-
drinking and
yes.
smoking are still illegal in public.
Right, you can't
I
do them
know,
in public,
but
so
I
that,
just-
that is a reminder,
I mean,
folks.
here is a reminder
And
that
it's
it's
nice that
been
we
on
have a
our
bylaw.
bylaws for quite a while.
Yep.
And to me, it's still enforceable, even if we have a recreational place of business. You just can't come out of the store, light it up,
spark it
and
up, yep.
expect to be
Oh, absolutely,
walking
yeah.
away free. But just a reminder to everybody, it is on the books. And
Yep.
can you check zoning version 2018 for that other matter? You may be looking at an old version.
2014, Dave.
2018 is the newest one on the books.
Oh, 2018.
2018 is the newest.
Which other matter?
Was that from the fall town meeting? Did it incorporate those changes?
Yeah, it's a mess.
All right,
Sorry.
yeah, figure it out.
Yeah, we will.
Let's see. Any appointments, reappointments, or interviews? None. Licenses and permits? None. Town business, requests from Village Association to place signs on town property. I did look at that, but I didn't see where they wanted them. Are they just talking about using the thing on Main Street? Because they don't need permission from that.
Actually, that's, I think, what she wanted to put them, use either at 241, or it's a minute address.
Because that blue thing at Pizzoli, they act, the town administrator just lets them use, they control it now, the Village Association, that blue sign thing, so they don't even need our permission.
Yeah, it's just basically gonna be signs for the Swan Festival. I think it's 7/14, rain date 7/15. Oktoberfest train is 10/27. The Christmas parade is 12/2. They'll be coming back before us probably next week, for permits for the actual events. They fill out 2 forms. This one was the one that came to us. The actual event piece didn't, so,
All right,
we
but
can.
they're gonna be looking for events, they're gonna be
Yeah.
looking for a December permit now?
Well, they need those
Yeah, we're
permits.
trying to
They're
get
gonna
them
do
done.
them all at once.
Oh, the OBA does them too now.
Yeah, okay.
Fine.
All right, so I'd make a motion that we, basically
A lot of signs for those.
all signs for them, because they know where they
Second.
have to go.
Okay, motion to approve placement of signs by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, 400. That's good.
You got donation?
Yep.
Okay, we have a donation to the Wareham Library Foundation. On behalf of the town of Wareham, wish to extend appreciation and gratitude for your generous donation of $5,000 to the Wareham Free Library, and that's from the foundation. Make a
Okay.
motion to accept.
So moved. Oh, you made the motion?
You made the motion.
Second.
Okay. Motion to accept the generous donation from the Library Foundation, the amount of $5,000 by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Scasiotti. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. Wait a minute, we've got continued discussion and possible votes to include articles on special town meeting warrant. We had already talked. Attorney Bowen, have you come up with any information on a shopping cart law that you can forward out to the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have a draft of a bylaw. I'll email it to all of you so that you can.
Why don't you
review
email it to each of us separately, because I know Selectman Tropiano's had a particular interest in this one, and so he can correspond with you, and we don't have an open meeting law problem with the rest of us seeing what you guys... Next week, we should probably try to get everything we want on. We do have the fail-safe of the following week. We've set a deadline for the 15th for submittal, but of course, that's applicable to everybody else.
Okay.
So the 20th, we're going to vote to close the special town meeting within the annual town meeting. So we've got 2 weeks to get that filled out. So if you've got any brainstorms or there's things we've talked about, we'll have to get that done in the next 2 weeks. Were there any other possible articles people were thinking about?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Now, we've got here the 2018 Spring Town Meeting Warrant Article Index.
Yep.
But didn't we vote to include everything else from 11 through 18 here? I'm just asking a question, sorry,
Yeah.
because this is the warrant that's been posted.
Yeah, we did. I don't know why.
You want to do it again, just in case?
It's already passed and posted.
Oh, then it is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, the warrant, yeah, vote to include. Yeah, I don't know why you just got this. That should have been, because we have, let me just check the warrant, make sure.
It's 1 to 18.
Yeah, let me just make sure the numbers align.
I just looked very quickly, we seem.
Yeah, I'll just check it, though. Fund Director, Council on Aging, that goes on by operational law. Commercial aquaculture by operation of law, so that's NA on those.
And $5,000. That's a citizen's petition for.
Yep. So the actual articles would start going backwards with 15, which is, that's a petition too. These should be, yeah, well, that's okay.
They go automatically.
Yep. So we go back to 14, amend bylaw, and that was at the request of the Finance Committee. So we did vote to put that on, so that one's good.
That should be 400.
Yeah, because we've had everybody,
Yes.
here. Nobody's missed a meeting for a while. I know that.
Everything else there is 400.
13, I just want to read them out loud. Restoration of Onset Pier, and that was a CPC grant application. That was 400. I remember Wesley Methodist Church, that's 400. The CPC fund reserves were 400. So we've got 11, 12, 13. So these are all set, so if you could put that back in the folder, and then we can at least get that sheet updated. Now I'm not remembering whether we voted to recommend at the same time. I don't know that we did.
No, we did not.
We didn't vote on anything to recommend.
We haven't
We'll
got
get
the,
that, we'll get that done next week.
Okay.
At least certainly for the annual, get that finished off. Let's see, any other town business not reasonably anticipated 48 hours prior to the meeting? Selectman Tropiano? Selectman Scasiotti? Clerk Slavin? I have nothing. You never have anything? Town Administrator's report, he's
No.
not here. Liaison Initiative reports?
Okay, all right, so I went to the school building meeting, and they're doing the required, things for the committee. And one of the things that they're required to do is to take, and what they did is they took you have to try to do a rehab, right? of
You have to look at that first.
Yeah, you have to look at it. So they did this, they took the Minot, and they added to it, and they did a whole bunch of things to try to make it all work. And by the way, I think they're gonna end up with a 3-story design, because it's just so much cheaper to pull it all together. And, it's about probably a 25% difference in costs going up as opposed to going out, with all the different things that you do.
Now, even with locating that at Minot, where you got plenty of room?
Well, yeah, and see, the problem with Minot is, it has a couple of other issues, too. If they move the building up to the back,
Right,
they have notified Mass Historical,
yeah.
and they truly believe that Mass Historical will come back and ask them to do archaeology digs in little squares, with the whole thing, and do digs. to
That
make sure
land's
there's-
already been disturbed.
To make sure there's no artifacts up there.
Yeah, that land's already been disturbed. That's maybe my only
Yeah,
question,
but
but
that's, you can say that, but if they say it, you can't argue it, you gotta
Yeah.
do it, and it's costly. So if they put it in the footprint where the school is now, right, and they go up to 3 stories, then they don't have any issues
Yeah,
with that.
it's true.
It eliminates all those issues. They take that out and put it right in the same footprint. Pretty much, for all intents and purposes. They'll have the same courtyard and the whole thing, but of course, it'll all be a new building and everything else. Well, if that's the choice. First, you have to identify what the rehab costs are and everything else. Now, we didn't have numbers yesterday, but we did sort of lay out how it would fit in there and everything. And believe it or not, it will have 5 different levels if you use the building that's there now, as opposed to 3 levels with 2 entries on the proposed newer building. So because of the way it's built now, I don't know if you know, that school has multiple levels. So you'd have 5 different levels in the school, actually. And just kind of a lot of craziness. And, getting the old boilers out of there, you gotta take all the walls down, you gotta take all the classrooms in the front, because they're too small by standard, so you gotta rip all those out. And, it's a real big job. I'm guessing it's gonna come in way higher than it is just to build a new building. But you have to go through the process.
Right.
So that's what they're doing, that's what we did the other night. Then we set up a couple of visits to, one of them is in Fall River. There's a 3-level school they just built, a little while ago, I guess 2008. So it's not the most up-to-date techniques, but it is. And then we're gonna go see Carver's new school, which is under construction, which will be interesting too. It's actually similar design of what they're talking about, so that'll be kinda neat while it's under construction to see that. So they wanted us to go to Athol, and everybody's poo-pooed that. I mean,
A little too far?
it's too far to go to, you know, for whatever. So, but these others are fine, and they did see the one in New Bedford that they just built, you know,
That's a nice one.
which is a 3-story school as well. So some of that stuff's all being worked out and so on, and, you know, it should help maybe get some costs under controls as things start to develop a little bit, you know,
Okay, good.
which is nice, in my opinion. Next, we need to talk about, you know, they're closing the Minot School is the plan for right now because that's the situation with dollars, as you well know. And everybody was, at the meeting, was up in arms about it and, you know, whatever. They're freaking out because, you know, the schools are shrinking, all the stuff is shrinking down. And yeah, the enrollment numbers are shrinking. And, you know, they're putting out like $3 million in school choice, which is a lot of money taken away from the schools, and all of these issues that have been developing. And some people would say, well, what do you need a school for? You know, whatever. Well, let's just talk about it for a second, okay, so everybody understands. For one, if we built one school instead of having 2 schools, there'd be a considerable savings just in infrastructure,
Administration,
yeah, administration and everything else. Cuts it literally in half to run the one school as far as the other one. Might be a little bit more, but you know what I'm saying. So that would be in one place, and everything else, it kind of saves a lot of money, okay, which would help. The other thing is that they, you know, at some point in this town, whether we believe it or not, at some point, the only way for us to fix the issues is someday we're going to have some kind of a general override that will put us up to the level we need to be at so that we can then run things going into the future. It's the only way it's going to work. And at some point, that's going to happen. Well, I heard a lot of people in that room that night yelling, yeah, let's do this, which you didn't hear before. As you well know, it went down 2-1 the last time it came up. So not to say that, you know, but there's a lot of homework to be done yet. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's something we're going to do right away. There's a lot of homework that has to be done, and a lot more, you know, study with as far as the future budget cycles and all that to make it all work. We got to do that at some point, and we're going to have to talk about it a little more into the future because, look, we're doomed. No matter what, whether we build a school, we don't build a school, no matter what we do, the town is in phased-in bankruptcy, and it's going to happen. You know, next year we get another let's say we get $1.5 million. Like we get 1.4 this year. Say we get $1.5 million. Well, the contracts to the teachers is 1.1 this year. Next year it might be 1.2. I don't know. And that's just, so there's your money's almost gone, even if you're just trying to take care of the school.
Yep.
Not to mention all of the widgets that go up and the prices of things and labor costs that rise and, you know, everything else and insurance costs and all this kind of stuff. It just can't be sustained. And I have to caution people, it's not anything that the town's done. Please don't blame us for this. This happened because of the way 2.5 was implemented. It was a bad deal for low-income communities. Okay, a town like Weston has no problem. They get multi-millions of dollars every year in their 2.5 funds because their property values are out of the sight. Okay? But when you have all of the poor communities are suffering badly. And we happen to be one of them. We have a lot of services to give out. Our police department is operating right now on 1989 levels. Police department, 1989 levels. That's not a good thing.
Municipal maintenance is worse.
Municipal maintenance, yeah, they got 9 personnel down there. We used to have 54 personnel down there. So, you know, we're doing the best we can because you asked us to. Because you didn't want to give the override, and I get it. And so we're doing the best we can, and we're cutting as we go along. But every time we only do this once a year, and we probably should do it 10 times a year. That this is just, you know, we're saving things off, and we're reducing and reducing and reducing. But at some point, there's no place to go. And we're getting there very rapidly. As you well know, Alan's been blowing the whistle here since what? For the last 3 years, that 2019 was going to be a disaster.
5 years now.
Yeah. So, you know, that's been going on. And you know, people are going to have to start thinking about how they want their community to look, what they want their community to do. And, you know, I saw a lot of people out there pulling things together and really taking care of things. Well, now it might be time to take care of the whole community as a whole, and everybody might need to step up to the plate. Okay, but, you know, that's just me. All right, the next thing is the sewer thing. You know, I want to talk about that $10 million that's coming up that they're going to have to vote on at town meeting. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because if you remember, I mentioned Plymouth, and they had a $50 million problem. Well, the $50 million problem now is about a $100 million problem. $100 million. And who knows where it's going to go. They're all not talking anymore because there's going to be so many lawsuits and things going on and everything else because the pipe exploded, basically. And the fines from EPA and all that is astronomical. I mean, it's just really a bad situation. So, you know, that $10 million is really, it's really money in the bank to spend that $10 million. And believe me, it's not going to cost very much, and I'm sure they'll have numbers by the time town meeting rolls around. But just so you know, make sure you go and do that. And the last thing I have to talk about is the marijuana thing. I've heard people say, well, let's just not do it. Let's just vote it down and say no marijuana shops. Well, I got news for you. The law that we passed, that everybody voted for, says you can't do that. It explicitly, in the legislation that we passed, says you can't do that. Okay? So you can't change something that is, you know, it's like, I'll tell you another thing. Geez, I'm on a roll here, right? There's a guy at the meeting, the school meeting, who said, well, why don't we just, you know, get rid of 2.5? You know, as a town, we'll just get rid of it. You know, good luck trying to get rid of 2.5. That doesn't happen. And then he said something else. What did he say? He said, well, why don't we just charge the businesses more money?
Yeah, can't do that either.
Well, you know, as everybody knows, the way 2.5 works, you can only go 2.5 over the levy limit. The businesses are already in it. So if you charge the businesses more, you have to lower the rate on the residents and only come up with 2.5. That's how it works. So you can only get 2.5 no matter how wide. We can't get rid of it. There's nothing we can do about it. And he was very frustrated, and I felt bad for the guy because he says, well, everything I say, there's a reason why we can't do it. Well, yeah, believe me, we would have done it 20 years ago. We would have fixed the problem 20 years ago. We have a structural deficit. The only way to fix it is to go out there and do something about it. Anyway, those are the things. I know I talked enough, but these are the kinds of things that we're working with. I hope people will start to take the time to learn and get educated about these things. And you don't have to ask us. If you don't want to believe us, fine. Go online, look it up online, do whatever you got to do research. It's really easy nowadays. Google is the best thing in the world. And just make sure you go to the right websites. Don't go to some stupid website, but go to the state website or whatever and get the answers you need so that you can make an informed decision. Because this is your community. All of us are up here trying to make it better for you. That's what we hear. That's the only reason why I'm here. I don't know about you guys. That's what we're here for. And I'm sure you guys are the same, right? I mean, we all want to make it the best we possibly can make this place. But we need your help. And right now, we're going to need your help a lot. And, you know, you got to step up to the plate. Schools are not going to get fixed. Your property values are not going to rise. None of that stuff's going to happen if we don't start thinking about the community as a whole. Sorry.
That's
Thank
okay.
you. Thanks for indulgence.
There you go. Selectman Scasiotti? Okay, Clerk Slavin?
Just to emphasize what Patrick is talking about, it's really important that people understand what an override is, what a debt exclusion is, what can be done and not done. You know, Proposition 2.5, you know, Chapter 70 education monies, the school library board for the state, how they work, Chapter 90 road repair. I think I mentioned 6 years ago there was no white knight coming down the road to help us. The only thing coming down the road was going to be us. And if you want to fix these things, you're going to have to basically, the public's going to have to get up and say, I don't know if you remember that movie, I think it was a newspaper movie, says, you know, I can't take this anymore, and you see like typewriters going out the
Peter
windows and
Finch.
everything. Remember that?
Yep.
I mean, we're at that point where the people are going to have to step up and say, these things don't work for us. They need to be rewritten, etc. We as selectmen don't have the ability to rewrite these rules. You know, we'd love to be able to do it, but we can't. So this is gonna have to be a citizen's effort. If you wanna fix 2.5, it's gotta come from the public. If you wanna fix these other issues, it's gotta come from the public. If you wanna fix the financial status of the town, it's gotta come from the public. Because we basically run into a wall 24/7 when we try and do stuff. You know, I had someone say to me, well, why can't we take 2.5 and put it in for 1 year, then take it out? Because the state doesn't allow you to do that. Well, why can't it? Because that's what the rules are, and it just keeps going back. So you have to change the law. Why can't you do it? We can't. You can. The problem we have with an override, and it's been the problem from day one, is that in the first year of an override, whatever it's going to be, you can specify where the money goes. We did this with Larry McDonald, myself. We had the finance committee. We had the board of selectmen. We had the school committee. We had the town administrator. We had everybody on board, which has never happened before. We spread this out over 5 years. We showed where the money would go. The problem was we couldn't guarantee anybody that after the first year, because the way the law is written, where that money would go. We put it in there where it would go, but we couldn't guarantee it because the law doesn't allow you to do that. And therefore, we have a trust issue. The public didn't trust us to follow through. And it's really a shame because this is the first time I can ever remember where everybody was on board and wanted to do it. But unless they change the way the 2.5 is set up, I can't guarantee anyone because 5 of us, there's 4 of us here now, there's going to be 5. You don't know from year to year who's going to be sitting up here. You don't really know who's going to be the town administrator. You hope it's the same person we have because our town administrator has probably saved us. If he wasn't here, I'd say probably 2 years ago we would have been really in serious issues with DOR, et cetera. So this is a town-wide deal. Everybody's got to step up. This is not 5 people running the town for you. This is every one of our 22,000 residents have to figure out what they want to do and start to work at it. Because we can't change the laws on our own. You can, we can't. Thank you.
Yeah, the issue with trying to tie up money going forward from 1 year is that town meeting is the legislative branch of the town, and just like Congress, you know, in Washington, the president proposes and Congress disposes. Here, you know, we propose a budget to town meeting, and town meeting is the one that makes the final determination and votes the budget into law. So you can't tie town meeting's hands past that first year because town meeting does vote on the contingent budget as well as the actual budget in case an override fails. That's how we structured it the last time. You know, it does raise an interesting point that we had all the boards on board the last time around. One of the issues, I think, and it's interesting that, you know, my colleagues here are calling for sort of grassroots on this stuff. You know, we tried it top down and it didn't work. I'm hesitant, frankly, to try it as a top-down initiative again. I said at the time, you know, if you want me to vote to put an override on an election ballot, bring me 3,000 signatures. And that's the kind of thing it would take to really get me to think about it, is give me 3,000 signatures from citizens who say they support this, and they'll show up to the polls, and then I'll see that the effort is serious. Then I'll know that my decision has been guided by at least a substantial amount of the voters, and I'll feel a lot better about it. Right now, I've got to be honest with you, you know, we're looking at all kinds of expenses all over town, expenses not even of our own government. You've got a $12 million hit from the water district coming in with the new treatment plant. 14, okay, well, I guess, you know, like everything else, it goes up every day. Onset, you know, they've got $9 million set aside for a new fire station. So the voters in Onset are going to have to face that cost. The sewer users are probably going to wind up with a $10 million bill, and while we can talk about it being better than $50 million, it's still $10 million. It's still going to probably require some kind of bonding and a special assessment or something, a betterment for that pipe, or so something's going to have to happen. You know, sewer users are going to be paying more money. We've got a school that we're thinking about, and that's even with 75% reimbursement. That's going to be that's going to be over $20 million bucks that the taxpayers have to come up with in the form of a debt exclusion and borrowing.
It's going to be about 30.
Way more than 20.
Yeah, but it's going to be over 20. We know that.
It's going to be 30.
We built the last school, this one, middle school, that was like 24 million for that rehab. Now, rehabs are a little more money, just so you know. We chose that because we didn't want to move it from where it was. I sat on that building committee.
Yeah. But there's a lot of big-ticket items coming up, and it's going to be very tough to ask for an override at the same time as you're dipping into everybody's pockets for all these other things, which, you know, it's easier to make the argument that you need the money to fix the stuff than it is to, quote, run the town, unquote. That's a much harder sell. So be mindful of that and listen to my colleagues when they say, tell us what to do, because that's what it's going to take.
Well, you know, it's interesting because people, you know, they see that, you know, well, they go down to get a permit, it costs them money. They go to get a sticker, it costs them money. They go get this, and they say, well, you're getting me all this money here and there. Well, you know, if we weren't getting that money, I mean, we might as well put the key in the door and go home.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be all over because the building department puts a huge chunk of money in our hands. I mean, they really do. I mean, I hate to say it, but they do, and it's an important piece of money because literally, I mean, you would just put the key in all the doors and go home. I mean, at that point, I
Yep.
mean, it just wouldn't happen. And you know, and I'm not a firm believer in fees.
Oh, I know you're not a fee person. I know
I'm
you
not
and
a fee person.
Selectman Whiteside used to go at it on the fees just a little bit. But I bet you're thankful for them now, aren't you? Yeah, see?
Well, it's, you know, look, some fees are required. I just don't know whether a fee's required for everything.
But anyway, moving on, last week, the Zoning Board of Appeals held the opening round, I'll call it that, of the Woodland Cove 40B comprehensive permit application hearing. Some interesting information came out of that. The hearing was continued until the 21st. It's probably going to have to be held in the auditorium that night because I believe Conservation meets the first and third Wednesdays of the month, so they will likely be in here. So I don't think the Zoning Board of Appeals can boot them out. So we'll also have to make arrangements with WCTV to try to do it there. I suppose we could try room 27 because that's already set up. But we got a pretty good turnout. We had a capacity turnout in here, capacity plus actually, because people were standing for that hearing. A lot of interest in this. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Well, you know, we talked about it at the school meeting, and I get to say this because it was part of the thing. At the school meeting, the estimates are between 400 and 700 children coming out of that project. Before 400 and 700 children coming into our school system. So we can't afford it. I'm just going to tell you right now. They can't afford 400 to 700 kids. They can't.
Yeah, can't afford it, unfortunately, is an illegal grounds for stopping a 40B project.
Unfortunately, it isn't. But the fact of the matter is, we can't afford it.
Nope.
That's the problem.
There were concerns expressed at the meeting. I did read the letter that the board authorized me to write, requesting impact studies on various things. The onset water department showed up, both the chairman of their water board and also their water superintendent. And, you know, they expressed some concerns about capacity and condition of pipes and so on and so forth. So, you know, again, it's a back and forth process on a 40B. The process right now is to figure out what information we need to help the ZBA with their decision and how they handle it going forward. So that's an ongoing thing, but that's on the 21st, so it would be nice if people maintain their interest in this. This isn't going to be something that's going to be solved in a few meetings. This is going to go on for a while. Big projects require big time and big studies and big decision making. So I hope people stay engaged in this. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Yeah, there's the cemetery commission, the hearing, public hearing on the cemetery rules is for tomorrow. I think it's at 6 p.m. in the auditorium.
Okay.
So that's something people need to show up for also.
Yep. There was something else relating to... There was something else that was going on, too, and I forget what it was. There was something in relation to planning. Oh, the master plan.
That's the one.
Master plan meeting.
Yeah, it's...
And that's to look at it's sort of the last crack to have some input into it. This is the latest and potentially final draft.
the master plan
This
is
is the 22nd, isn't
is
it?
in the auditorium on March 15th.
Oh, 15th.
15th at 6 p.m. in the auditorium.
Okay, it was a week off. So that would be next Wednesday.
Thursday.
Thursday? That's right, Thursday, yep.
Thursday. I think it's planned for 6 to 8 p.m.
Right, and that will have incorporated some of the commentary that came in during the last time they had it, when they had things spread out. You know, what are you concerned about? Here's the old plan, where do you think we are, so on and so forth. So this will be, I think, probably the final public whack at this thing. So if you've got something to say, that's the time to say it. Let's see, consent agenda.
No.
Well,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
motion to adjourn by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Scasiotti. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 4-0-0. Thank you, Wareham.
Good night. Be safe.